Hey everybody, Zach and Andrew here joining you live. So happy to be with you guys today. We are fresh from the Gay and Sober Men Conference in New York City, as well as Gay Pride. And it's just such an amazing experience being able to be in New York City during the Pride Parade with my love, having such an amazing connection and experience. And it was just so fun being able to go to the Gay and Sober Men Conference as well. There were some really amazing experiences we had. We got to do a really incredible workshop together, and one of my highlights from the weekend was getting to see one of my heroes, one of our heroes, Marianne Williamson, speak to us live. And it was interesting. I was so excited to get to see her, and her talk was mind-blowing. How was her talk for you, Andrew?
Yeah, it was great. I really loved it. Really awesome to see her in person. Hey, Brett, really good to see you. Hi, Julio.
Hey, man. Yeah.
yeah, she was fantastic, and she's such a great voice for the gay community as well, and she's been really bridging spirituality and politics, which has been fascinating for me and really cool to see how she approaches that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was so mind-blowing to hear her speak in person. It was all that I had hoped it to be. We've been really reading her book hardcore. I've been listening to her audiobook everywhere I go when I'm driving. She's just so inspirational. She's teaching us so much about spirituality and growth. And after her talk, there was a really amazing Q&A section. And yeah, it really was an interesting experience for me. I worked up my courage to ask her a question. And it's really taught me a lot about, for one, to be really impeccable with how I word things, especially when I'm quoting someone, and also just to be more mindful about how I can interpret things and how your ego can totally get in your way, or mine did anyway in this example. So Marianne spoke and she answered a few questions, and I was so just blown away with all of her wisdom and knowledge and everything that she has to teach, as always. And I worked up the courage to ask her a question, and hey guys, hey Bay, hey everyone. And so I asked her about something in the text that was a little confusing to me. Hey Graham, she speaks about how, and I'm this is my interpretation. I'm paraphrasing, but she speaks to how holding in anger and rage can be really unhealthy. It can really lead you to it can cause cancer, it can cause ulcers. It's really an unhealthy thing. And so I kind of made a reach, and I kind of made the interpretation that it can be a loving choice to express anger. And I asked her about that as if that was exactly what she had said. And I got, hey Doug, and I got a really interesting response. I asked Marianne, so when you talk about how anger and expressing anger can be a loving choice, I asked her if she could give us a little bit more detail, a little bit more feedback about that. And she gave me the funniest look and said, did I say that? I don't think did I say that in return to love? I don't think I said that. And I was instantly just overcome with fear and embarrassment. We were sitting in a room full of 300 gay men in the conference who we were presenting a workshop to the next day. And instead of being where I was so eager to hear an explanation to this, I had the complete opposite reaction. And because I was so overwhelmed with embarrassment, Marianne, I'm told later that she had like a really great response. She really tied it in and explained herself, but my ego just instantly started going at me saying, you are so stupid. You need to be more careful with what you said. How can you embarrass, one of your idols? And I just felt so humiliated, and it was just a really interesting experience.
Yeah, it was a really fun experience, really funny that happened, because Zach's been, I love Marianne as well, and he's been so into, hey Tim, good to see you. Hey Dale, thanks for saying hi. He's been really into reading her book, especially since the Fearless Flow retreat that we went to. And so excited to finally get to ask her a question. A lot of people were raising their hands, and he got called on, thinking, oh, I'm asking such a smart question. And,
that's what I thought.
And then had the complete exact opposite reaction from her. Hey, Daniel, good to see you. It was really great meeting you this last weekend. Hey, Justin. And so he got the exact opposite response that he would have wanted. Like, she's, what? No, I didn't say that. And afterwards, Zach smiled. He stood there. He smiled. Steven says, "I felt your pain, Zach."
I was just completely in my head. Yeah, she was looking me right in the eyes, explaining, and to this day, I have no idea what she was saying. I was just looking at her, grinning, but just completely consumed by my embarrassment, feeling so stupid, letting my ego just tell me how dumb I was and how I was saying the wrong thing and how everybody there probably thought I was an idiot and just blah, 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 but just feeling like that, like my head, just all this pressure. And yeah, it was just funny. I mean, afterwards, after the Q&A, I rushed over to her to apologize for putting words in her mouth. I felt so bad. I felt like I had insulted her, even though I had completely tuned out whatever she had said right after my question. And yeah, I just told her, "Marianne, I'm so sorry for trying to put words in your mouth." And she just so lovingly grabbed my face and she just said, "Oh, honey, it's okay." And I just felt so much love and I felt so much reassurance. But it's funny that until that happened, I had let my ego and my fear of judgment, my fear of embarrassment, which I really have at bay most of the time, but these are gremlins and they can come back and bite you when you least expect it. And that moment of that anxiety that I was experiencing is what triggered that, and it just totally let that gremlin, that negative self-talk come up and get me. Steven says, "I'm happy you're acknowledging this publicly. Takes guts to be vulnerable. You're very sweet." Oh, thanks, Steven. And I was really inspired because Steven also got to ask her a question. I was like, "That's so cool. She's so interactive. I just want to ask her anything." So I just tried to think of something in the book that I wasn't quite sure of. And I definitely wasn't sure of it. I definitely, made, and another limiting belief is interpretation. So, I mean, it's a lesson to learn that, for one, if you're quoting someone, especially to them, you want to make sure you know what they're saying. I could have at least said it was my interpretation that this is what happened, but I said, "Marianne, when you said this, when you said expressing anger is a loving choice," it wasn't the right way to go about it. And but I also had a really big learning experience from just realizing that if I hadn't have let my ego consume me in that way, I would have been completely present and receptive to the amazing knowledge and growth that she was offering. I met up, we were doing lots of workshops throughout the weekend, and I teamed up with another person and told them about that experience. And I remember him telling me that, yeah, he remembered thinking, "Gosh, I remember when that was asked, I had hoped that they had heard her response because he could have imagined how embarrassed they were, and he didn't know it was me." And he was like, "Oh my God, that was you." But the funny thing is, I was reading A Course in Miracles today. Andrew and I are huge fans of A Course in Miracles, which is the basis of Marianne Williamson's teachings. She's written several books. One of them is A Return to Love, which is the one I'm currently reading. And it's basically her breaking down a lot of the text in A Course in Miracles because, as you know, or as you may know, it's very, very dense. It's kind of like reading the Bible, which can be a lot to wrap your head around. So that's why they recommend only reading a small bit at a time. But the lesson from Return in Miracles today, and I believe there's no coincidence, because this was still kind of nagging at me a little bit, just that little bit of that feeling of embarrassment. And the lesson today was about how your thoughts don't mean anything. And the lesson was to say, the practice is to say, my thought about being embarrassed doesn't mean anything. My thought about saying the wrong thing does not mean anything. My thought about being stupid does not mean anything, because it doesn't. Those thoughts only hold me back and prevent me from being present and being authentic, because when I let those thoughts consume me, I completely tuned out. I snapped out. I wasn't a part of this room of 300 gay men and one of my spiritual mentors, Marianne Williamson, and she was speaking directly to me, and I was completely oblivious to it. So it just reminded me, today's lesson, that this idea, it will help me release all that I now believe about that experience. And I just felt that was really powerful and felt really compelled to share that with you guys today.
Yeah, I love how you said that, how you were in a room with 300 sober gay men who you're so happy to be with, and one of your heroes was literally right in front of you, but you were so in your head that you might as well have not even been in the room.
Right.
For those few minutes.
Yeah. For that brief moment.
And so that's a huge learning lesson. So
yeah,
and also I just wanted to say, because I remember when you had thought you read that in her book one afternoon, and you're like, "Hey Andrew, hey Craig, really good to see you. I'm so glad you're inspired by this." And you told me, "Hey, so yeah, I was reading in her book today, and she said it's actually a very loving choice to express anger." And I was just
so
like,
much.
"Oh crap!"
Yeah,
because I don't feel that excited when I'm on the receiving end of anger.
Right, so, and that's understandable because Marianne Williamson is very clear about, as in A Course in Miracles, about how there's two emotions, fear and love. And so when I put, where she had said something about how, holding in anger isn't healthy, that's not the same thing as saying expressing anger is a loving choice, which is what I was saying she was saying. It was definitely my interpretation, but I was making it literal. I was making it fact. And that's why limiting beliefs like interpretations and assumptions can really hold you back if you're not careful. And so it was a really great lesson for me to be much more mindful about, A, what I'm saying, to be impeccable with my words, and two, to be mindful of I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. Go ahead, say something, Andrew. Sorry.
Being impeccable with our words, really being sure of what we want to say. It's one of the 4 agreements from the Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The 4 Agreements. And there's a funny joke that Marianne had made, actually. She actually talked about being impeccable with your word during this talk. And she said some people have to be 80% confident with their facts before they go out and say it. And then there are some people that only have to be 20% confident with the facts that they have before they go out and talk about it.
Yeah.
So just, something that's really important to think about. And also something that really stuck out to me while we were there at the conference throughout. There were a lot of men there that had publicly said that they felt very uncomfortable once they got there. And I think it was very similar to what Zach was experiencing, just fear of what other people are thinking about us, or about them, fear of judgment. And it was really helpful for me to be reminded of that so many people still feel that way. Because it's something I haven't felt very much myself for quite a while, but I do remember like junior high, high school, wanting to skip a lot of social events just because I was afraid of feeling awkward and out of place. Right.
Yeah, it just goes to show how hard we can be on ourselves and how we can really prevent ourselves from really beautiful experiences. Like with me, for example, with Marianne Williamson, I let my ego and my fear of judgment completely just blind me to being present and being a part of that experience and not feeling so embarrassed that I wasn't able to hear the beautiful words and the teachings and the explanation that I would have benefited so greatly from. Just like many men at the conference who felt like they, didn't fit in, or felt like they didn't belong, or felt triggered by other straight men. And we know a really great couple that really felt triggered by some straight men they encountered in the elevator, and that led them to not wanting to be a part of the conference because they felt so down about themselves. It just goes to show how we can really be our own worst enemies sometimes. We can really prevent ourselves from growth and from like I said, beautiful experiences. And so a big takeaway for me is to not only be impeccable with my word, but to allow myself the room for growth and the room to make mistakes, because we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Nobody in that room was judging me. Marianne Williamson wasn't judging me. She doesn't hate me. Those men in that room don't hate me, but my voices in my head that I allowed to consume me were telling me that, Zach, you're a fucking idiot. These people aren't going to come to your workshop tomorrow because they probably think you're stupid. And so I was just like panicking on the inside, sitting there smiling. I was nodding at what she was saying. I was aware that everyone in the room was staring at me, and that's all that I could think about. I was making it all about myself, which is the ego. I was letting my ego completely control me and ruin my experience. Fortunately, this only happened for a brief moment, and I got over it really quickly, but this is stuff that can really allow you to, that people can allow, to really like ruin your day, ruin your week, prevent you from wanting to go back on another date or go out and try to meet someone. we build up these fears so greatly in our minds, and they can be devastating to our progress and our growth. And I'm just really glad that I got to explain this and share this with you guys today. It was a little embarrassing, but I'm not allowing my fear of judgment right now to prevent me from wanting to just be open about this experience. And I'm glad that I've been able to learn from it, and hopefully through my faults give you guys a little bit of a taste of how, this can affect you and how you can overcome it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, Phil, good to see you. Hi, Russell. Yeah, so important to realize that. And so if you can relate to Zach in one of those ways, or if you were one of the, the men at the conference, or can relate to that, being afraid to go to a place that you want to be just because you're afraid of what other people might think. Like when these men spoke up and they were saying these things, I was personally thinking like, wow, I can't imagine thinking that about this man here, like not wanting to be here, or not wanting, judging him for the things that he's concerned about.
Right.
And I was so glad that they were there, and I was so sad about the idea of them possibly have skipping the meetings because of those fears. Right. And it's just, people are probably not thinking nearly as harshly about you as you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
And so just something to keep in mind and to remember.
Yeah, and it all really comes back from, today's lesson for me in A Course in Miracles, that, my thoughts about X, Y, and Z, they don't mean anything. And there's no point in allowing them to prevent us from being present and being out there. And it just goes to show how our own thoughts can be our own worst enemies sometimes. Our thoughts can hold us back and keep us stuck, but they don't have to. So if anything we talked about today resonated with you, we'd love if you could give us some thumbs up, some hearts, and some comments down below. We love getting your feedback and hearing what you have to say. We're so grateful for all of you for joining us, whether you're catching us live or the replay. And is there anything else that you'd like to add, Andrew?
No, that's it.
Okay, great. Well, we hope you all have a beautiful day and look forward to coming back and joining you again really soon.
So, bye for now.